What's going on, fight fans? This is Capital Combat. I'm Rob Jarrell. And Hakeem and I had a hard time getting together. You know, it's been a long week, a lot of stuff going down. And it's a little bit late, so I'm going to put my thoughts on tonight's fights up, and then Hakeem's going to load his on later. So you get two different opinions. We might say the same thing. He might see something that I don't see. I might see something that he doesn't see. But it's still two different opinions. We're trying to bring some knowledge, and we want you to drop some knowledge as well. So for tonight's fight, we know we have the. It's a lot of fights on this weekend, actually. We know we have the Las Vegas HBO pay-per-view featuring Canelo Alvarez versus Amir Khan for the WBC middleweight title at a catchweight of 155. Okay. And then on there we have David Lemieux versus Glenn Tapia. We have Patrick Teixeira out of Brazil versus Curtis Stevens, and we have Diego De La Hoya as a showcase fight on there. So let's get into it. Yeah. It's a lot of fights, kind of lower card fights, but Diego De La Hoya, you know, that's the cousin of Oscar De La Hoya. So just keep an eye on him. I think this is his second, eight round fight, or second or third, something like that, at junior featherweight. So keep an eye on that. Now, Patrick Teixeira out of Brazil versus Curtis Stevens is interesting because these guys are two heavy-handed fighters. Curtis Stevenson has kind of had a hard go, and I'm in front of my computer, so I'm going to do a little bit of looking up stuff on here. Ever since the Triple G fight, it's kind of been up and down. I know he was on Big Knockout Boxing, where he fought Gabe Rosado. He was outboxed by Endom. He won versus Torreno Johnson, but that was more so a knockout, if I'm not mistaken, in the 10th round, which might have been stopped a little early. But I think he's being coached by John David Jackson now. And I want to just make sure, but I think he switched to John David Jackson, so hopefully, is it John David Jackson? I want to say it's John David Jackson. I know he changed trainers, but hopefully that helps him focus better. Now Teixeira is undefeated. He's out of Brazil. He's a hard hitter, and a lot of Brazilian boxers do have a lot of power. Acelino Freitas is a good example because he used to just, he could straight up punch with anybody damn near. And he's 26-0, so he has a lot of fights, but Brazil's one of those places where you don't really get the greatest competition or the best sparring. He is taller than Stevens by about 4 inches. I think he has a much longer reach, but his best win to date, I want to say is, well, I don't really have a best win for him because again, he's been in Brazil, so he hasn't fought the best fights. But I'm always wary of undefeated fighters from a different country that are southpaws. And it'll be interesting because I want to see if Stevens can still show his pedigree and he's not like shot worn or anything from the match with, like I said, I believe it was Gabe Rosado. And I wanted to say it's Gabe Rosado, and of course, lost to Endom and Triple G. So Gabe Rosado, and that was a draw. So that's interesting. So let's move on. I want to say that Curtis Stevenson wins by knockout, but I'm not sure what his punch resistance is. Especially against a guy, again, like Patrick Teixeira, who hasn't fought the greatest competition. But you can never count out an undefeated fighter. And he has 22 KOs, so you know he's been knocking people out. All right, so let's move on. Then after that, we have... Oh, I'm sorry. Mauricio Herrera versus Frankie Gomez. Gomez, I think, is definitely a good prospect, but Mauricio Herrera is just one of those guys that's just almost impossible to just figure out. Because a lot of people say he outboxed, well, we know he beat Provodnikov. A lot of people say he outboxed Danny Garcia. He's not a knockout artist, but he has a style where it's awkward and it's hard to time him and catch his rhythm. I think Frankie Gomez does win, but that's only because I don't think Herrera has that style. He doesn't have such a friendly style. Which is an issue because if you're not landing those hard shots, then or look effective, especially if Frankie Gomez can be heavy-handed and land some good power shots. He could be outboxed, and let's not forget that. Let's see. He has some decent wins versus Vernon Paris and Jorge Silva, but there's no real sexy names on his resume. So if Gomez gets past Herrera, I don't think he'll knock him out. But if he gets past Herrera, that's going to open up a lot bigger challenges and more money in the welterweight division. So I'm looking forward to that one. I think Frankie Gomez will pull it out in a very close decision, which is going to be 10 rounds. So yeah, I think it's going to be a very close decision. You're going to see. I can see Gomez. I can see Herrera outboxing and even outworking Gomez in spots to make the rounds close. But it's not like I said, it's not going to be the sexiest fight out there. Now we have David Lemieux versus Glenn Tapia. David Lemieux did get knocked out by Triple G, to be expected, but that's his style. He doesn't really have enough head movement or defense to really mitigate the power and the boxing ability of Triple G. If I was him, I would have tried to just overwhelm him and put him on the ropes if possible. But David Lemieux has no head movement. He doesn't even have it where he makes it difficult and rolls with the punches. So he was just outboxed and overwhelmed. But the thing about it is he should be able to get into the space of Glenn Tapia very easily. I can't see Glenn Tapia winning this fight at all because if he's been knocked out horrifically. And if I'm not mistaken, he was knocked out by Kirkland, and he knocked Kirkland down, but we know Kirkland has a really cold chin. But once he gets going, if you can't take him out in the first 3 rounds, then he's pretty much going to give you a fight for the rest of those rounds. And he was knocked out badly by Michael Soro, who I think really needs to step up and get some better fights at 154. I think he's just so underrated, and I think he might be more avoided than people give him credit for. Because other than Glenn Tapia and, say, Antoine Douglas, who he drew with, and he really hasn't gotten the fights in the top 15 names like talking about. So, but just to go away from that, I think Lemieux overwhelms Tapia. Tapia is He's under Freddie Roach, but I don't think Freddie Roach is doing enough with him, especially with a guy that gets hit way too cleanly. Um, if you're going to be hit that cleanly, then you go into an offensive coach. You're not learning anything to mitigate or maybe stifle your opponent's offense with your defense. And you could see it with Jorge Linares, who was knocked out a few times, and he went back to start training in Japan, where he got a lot of those um, wins at. And I think Glenn Tapia gets knocked out badly by the fifth round. It's because David Lemieux could be relentless. If you cannot outbox him from the outside, then you're not going to beat David Lemieux. I'm just going to say that. And now we have the main event, Canelo versus Amir Khan. Amir Khan thinks very highly of himself. And that can be a bad thing, and that can be a good thing, especially against such an opponent like Canelo Alvarez. I like the fact that Amir Khan is willing to take quite a few challenges, and moving up 8 pounds to fight Canelo is one of them for the middleweight title. It shows that he really wants to be known. He really wants to take those chances, but he can't let his mentality and his confidence or overconfidence get the best of him, because he said he was going to stand and trade with Canelo, which is about the dumbest thing that you can do. Because the thing about Amir Khan, he can overwhelm you with speed. He has the athleticism, but he tends to, again, get overconfident and bite off more than he could chew in exchanges. And with a guy like Canelo, who is an increasingly improving counterpuncher, especially on the inside, followed by the fact that he places his punches and varies up those punches. He doesn't have just one, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, or it's not robotic. He may hit you with jab, jab, left to the body, right over top, or jab, jab, uppercut, left hook. It's never really the same. He places his shots extremely, extremely well, and he's a sharpshooter. But mix that with counterpunching, which he's going to have to do with Khan, because Khan's going to rush in there and just try to overwhelm him with speed at times. And because his feet, he's athletic, but his feet either gets ahead of him or he gets ahead of his feet, he gets caught. And sometimes he just moves way too much, which will make it look like he's giving up ground. That's the thing with Canelo versus Erislander's Lara. Lara was moving too much, and it showed that it made it seem like he wasn't controlling the ring and distance, but he was running away, and like Canelo was always the aggressor. That was controversial because he landed a higher percentage, but Canelo landed the showier punches. And Canelo is much more mentally quick than Amir Khan, who is much faster with his feet and his hands. But if he can be timed, and Canelo can outthink him. It might take a round or two, but Canelo, with other counterpunchers, other fighters, he was able to just time his shots, time their shots, and show increasingly improving defense. I mean, the guy's getting better. I think there's just some styles that's going to give him trouble, such as Erislander's Lara, who is a counterpuncher. He's a mover, and the Austin Trout fight, even though he knocked Trout down, it was, again, something different. It's a guy who boxes and counterpunches, and both are southpaws. Amir Khan is neither of those. So Canelo should win. I don't think it goes the distance. Amir Khan has shown that he'll weather the storm and at least make it all 12. But whether he can do that and win is something different. Like, again, he's going to look like he's giving up too much space, or he's going to stay in too long and get caught. And I hope he is cognizant and listens to Virgil Hunter if he's going to have a chance. That's really the only thing Virgil Hunter, and he made it himself, he was not listening to Virgil Hunter in sparring or in fights and in training, and Amir Khan was confused and was like, look, if you're not going to listen and try to execute a plan, then I can't do nothing with you. And and even Virgil Hunter said himself, he said, if there's something that you see and it starts to work, keep doing it. I'm not going to tell you to go away from it unless it stops working. So I think hopefully he listens to Virgil Hunter to execute a game plan, a plan B or a plan C, and that they're in sync with his fight, because he's really going to have to fight damn near perfect. So that's all I got for you with the main events. If you have AWE, or of course if you got a stream, check out Anthony Crolla versus Ismael Barroso. That's a lightweight title, which should be fairly entertaining. And also on AWE from Germany is Kubrat Pulev versus Derek Chisora. And I don't know if you saw the weigh-in, but they got into it at the weigh-in, and they've been going at it since. So that should be pretty interesting in the heavyweight division. If you got any questions, feel free to hit us up, capitalcombat@gmail.com. Facebook Capital Combat, Google Plus Capital Combat, Facebook Capital Combat. And also check out Hakeem's video that he's going to post about this fight. And we'll see you next time. Peace.